My mother rang my doorbell for the first time in 9 years, and she was holding a suitcase in one hand and an itemized invoice for my life in the other. I want you to sit with that for a second, because it took me a full 10 seconds to sit with it myself when I opened that door. 9 years. No calls. No birthday cards that didn't come back stamped in red ink. No apology, not one, not ever. And then, out of nowhere, on a random Tuesday morning, there she was on my porch in the same beige cardigan she probably bought before I graduated high school, clutching a folded piece of paper like it was a peace treaty. It wasn't a peace treaty. It was a bill. Handwritten in blue ink, bullet points lined up like soldiers, every single one of them with a dollar sign in front of it. When I added them up later, the total came to $925,000. Not a joke. Not an exaggeration for the cameras. A literal, itemized invoice from the woman who gave birth to me. She didn't say she missed me. She didn't ask about my children, her own grandchildren, whose faces she had never once held in person. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "We need to talk about the family's future." Family's future. As if she'd been building one this whole time. As if she hadn't spent 9 years pretending I didn't exist. But here's the thing my mother didn't know when she showed up with her little handwritten list. I had a list too. Mine wasn't on a single folded piece of paper. Mine lived in a navy blue 3-ring binder that had been sitting in the bottom drawer of my desk for almost a decade, getting heavier every single year. 29 entries. Every one of them dated. Every one of them labeled in red pen. Every single item a piece of proof that my own mother chose to erase me the moment I stopped being convenient. She brought a wish list. I brought a paper trail. Before I take you into how we got to that kitchen table, the one where I finally opened that binder and read her the truth of what she did, item by item, do me a favor. Hit subscribe if you haven't, because trust me, you want to be here for the part where I lay all 29 pieces of evidence on that table one at a time. And drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. I genuinely love reading those. Now let me take you back. Back to the summer I turned 24, the summer my own family decided I wasn't one of them anymore. Picture a town so small you could walk the whole thing in 20 minutes. Millfield, Ohio. Population just over 2,000, and everybody in those 2,000 knew everybody else's business before it even finished happening. One church. One barbershop. One diner with booths that smelled like burnt coffee and bacon grease, no matter what hour of the day you walked through the door. That diner was basically the town's nervous system. Nothing happened in Millfield that didn't pass through those booths first. That was my entire world until I turned 18. My father, Kenneth, spent 31 years working the same shift at the lumber yard out on Route 7. Same steel-toed boots. Same quiet nod when he walked through our front door at 5:42 sharp, every single evening, like clockwork you could set your life around. My mother, Diane, ran our house the exact same way she ran the church women's committee, with precision, with control, and with absolutely zero tolerance for anyone stepping outside the lines she'd already drawn. She planned the Easter brunch. She ran the prayer chain like a general running troop movements. She decided who brought the deviled eggs and who brought the sweet tea to every single potluck in a 5-mile radius, and nobody, and I mean nobody, ever pushed back. Then there was my younger sister, Paige. For years behind me, and in every way that mattered to my parents, everything I wasn't. Loud. Magnetic. The kind of girl who got crowned homecoming queen and then acted shocked, like she hadn't spent 3 months campaigning for it. My mother adored her without condition. My father called her sunshine. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, the daughter who did the dishes without being asked twice, who aced every math test without anybody noticing, who never once got so much as a party thrown in her honor. I'm not telling you this to sound bitter. I'm telling you because you need to understand the math of my childhood, because everything that happened later only makes sense once you get this one fact. In my family, love wasn't unconditional. It was a budget. And Paige was always the first line item to get funded. When I turned 18, Ohio State handed me a full ride. First person in the entire Archer family tree to go to college. My mother packed my suitcase herself and slid a card between my folded sweaters, the kind with flowers stamped on the front, and in her own handwriting on the back, she wrote 4 words, "Come home soon. You belong here." I kept that card for 15 years. It's still sitting in my desk drawer to this day, right beside that navy binder. It's the last kind thing my mother ever wrote to me. I met Marcus Ellison in an advanced statistics class the spring of my junior year. He sat 2 rows ahead of me, and I remember watching him solve regression problems the way most people read a grocery list, calm, unbothered, never in a rush. He was studying engineering, minoring in computer science, on a partial scholarship out of Cleveland. His mother, Cora, had spent her career as a school librarian before retiring. His father, a white man from the suburbs, walked out when Marcus was 4 years old and never came back. Cora raised her son completely alone. She worked 2 jobs until he turned 16, and then, once she didn't need to anymore, she kept working 1 job just so she could volunteer at 3 others. Marcus was biracial, his mother's eyes, his father's jawline, and this way of listening to you that made you feel like whatever you were saying actually mattered to another human being. It sounds small. It wasn't. Our first date was at a taco truck near campus. He paid in crumpled singles pulled from his jacket pocket. I paid in quarters I'd been saving in a jar. We split a horchata and stood there talking until the truck literally shut its window on us. He told me he wanted to build something, he didn't know what yet, just something that actually solved a real problem for real people. I told him I wanted a career where numbers actually meant something instead of just filling a spreadsheet. He smiled and said, "Then we're in the right field." We dated for 3 years before he proposed. 3 quiet, steady years, nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, just 2 people slowly building trust brick by brick. He met my parents exactly twice in that time. The first visit, my mother smiled a little too wide and called him Michael instead of Marcus. The second visit, she got his name right, but she never once looked at him while she said it. Both times, my father shook his hand, said almost nothing, and disappeared into another room. I told myself it was nerves. Small-town people just needed time to adjust, I said. I actually believe that. It was Paige, of all people, who told me the truth first. At Thanksgiving that year, she leaned across the table and whispered, "He's nice, Iris, but Mom is never going to be okay with this. You know that, right?" I didn't know that. Not yet. Marcus proposed on an ordinary Tuesday night. No ring waiting in a box, no big scene, just the 2 of us at our tiny kitchen table in our cramped apartment near campus. He looked at me and said, "I want to spend my life with you. I want to build something with you. Will you let me?" I said yes before he even finished the sentence. That same night, I called home. My mother picked up on the 3rd ring. I told her the news, and the line went dead silent for exactly 7 seconds. I counted every single one of them because something in my gut already knew that silence meant something was about to break. Then she finally spoke. Not "congratulations." Not "tell me about the ring." She said, "You need to think very carefully about what this means for this family, Iris." A warning. My own mother's first response to my engagement was a warning. My father picked up the extension line. He cleared his throat twice and said absolutely nothing at all. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a text from Paige. "Mom has been crying since you called. Are you happy now?" I was, actually. For the first time in years, I genuinely was happy. I just didn't have the energy to type that back to her. 2 weeks after that phone call, an envelope showed up in my mailbox. Not a text. Not an email. A physical, handwritten letter on cream-colored stationery, my mother's careful cursive filling 4 full paragraphs. The last paragraph is the one that's carved into my memory word for word. "If you go through with this, you are choosing him over your family. We cannot support this. We will not attend. And if you walk down that aisle, do not expect to walk back through our door. He is not one of us, Iris. He never will be." That was the line. She drew it herself, in blue ink, on expensive paper, and she genuinely expected me to plant my feet on her side of it. I read that letter 3 times before I could even move. Then I folded it along its original creases and slid it into a plain manila folder. I couldn't have told you why I felt the need to keep it, but some quiet, methodical part of me, the same part that files receipts and labels bank statements without being asked, told me, hold on to this. So I held on to it. I had no idea yet that it would become item number 1. We got married at the Multnomah County Courthouse on a Saturday morning in June. 12 guests total, every single one of them from Marcus's side. His mother, Cora, flew in from Cleveland with a garment bag over her shoulder and a Tupperware container of pound cake in her hands. She pinned a small silk flower to my dress, took both of my hands in hers, and said, "Welcome to the family, baby." No father walked me down any aisle, because there was no aisle. Just a hallway lit up with fluorescent lights and a judge who mispronounced both of our last names. Afterward, we celebrated at a Thai restaurant, 4 tables pushed together, and Marcus's college roommate gave a toast that had everyone laughing so hard Cora nearly knocked over her own water glass. My dress cost $160 from a consignment shop on Hawthorne Street. Marcus wore a navy suit he'd found on a clearance rack. We looked exactly like what we were, 2 people doing the most important thing of their lives on a shoestring budget, because that's precisely what it was. That night, alone in our apartment, I sat on the edge of our bed staring at my bouquet, $6 worth of grocery store roses, and my hands started shaking. Not from doubt. From grief. I had just gotten married, and the two people who raised me hadn't even bothered to show up and watch. 1 week after the wedding, I mailed a card to Millfield. Inside, I tucked our wedding photo, Marcus and me grinning on the courthouse steps. I wrote a simple note. We are happy. I hope you can be happy for us someday. 11 days later, that exact same card landed back in my mailbox, stamped in angry red ink, returned to sender. I stared at that stamp for a long time. Then I opened the manila folder, slid the returned card inside, and wrote in red pen, Item 2. Wedding photo returned. That was the moment the binder was truly born, even if I didn't have the binder yet. The first year was brutal. I called my mother's number 4 separate times. Voicemail, every single time. I left careful, measured messages, the kind where you weigh every word because some part of you suspects it might be the very last message she ever bothers to listen to. Hi, Mom. Just calling to say hi. We're doing well. Marcus got a job downtown. I'm studying for my CPA exam. I miss you. Call me back whenever you're ready. She never called back. Not once. I mailed a birthday card for her, one for my father, one for Christmas. All 3 boomeranged back with that same red stamp. My father managed exactly 1 text message that entire year, 4 words, your mother needs time. No follow-up. No second attempt. Just those 4 words, sitting in my phone like an unfinished sentence I could never quite delete. That spring, Paige posted a family photo to Facebook, my mother, my father, Paige, and her boyfriend at the time, all grinning for the camera. The caption read, Sunday dinner with my people. I wasn't in the photo. I had never once been invited to that Sunday dinner in the first place. I printed that screenshot out. Not to torture myself with it, I printed it because by then I'd started doing something I couldn't fully explain, even to myself. I was filing everything. Every returned card. Every unanswered call log. Every scrap of proof that my own family had quietly decided I'd stopped existing. All of it went into that manila folder, and by March, the folder had grown so thick I finally transferred everything into an actual binder. Navy blue. 3 rings. Tabbed by year. He is not one of us. Her voice would surface in my head at the strangest moments, standing in the grocery store checkout line, sitting in the dentist's chair, wide awake at 2 in the morning while Marcus slept beside me and the apartment sat in total darkness. I wanted those words to stop hurting me. They never fully stopped. But eventually, they got quieter. And the binder just kept getting thicker. By year 2, Marcus made a decision that terrified me and thrilled me in equal measure. He quit his job. Not on a whim. He'd spent 6 months quietly building a prototype at night and on weekends, a compliance platform designed for small businesses, something that could make SEC filings and financial audits less of a nightmare for companies too small to afford their own legal team. He understood compliance inside and out. I understood finance. Together, the two of us understood a problem that nobody else seemed interested in solving, making regulatory paperwork survivable for companies with fewer than 50 employees. He set up shop in our garage. 2 monitors. A space heater running full blast in the corner. A whiteboard he'd bought secondhand for $12. Every evening after my analyst job, I'd come home, heat up leftover soup, and sit beside him reviewing financial models until midnight. I built the pricing model. I wrote the compliance checklists from scratch. I stress-tested every single module against actual SEC guidelines. He built the engine underneath it all. I built the interface on top. Neither one of us slept enough that year. Compliance Core, that's what we ended up naming it, launched 7 months later with exactly 4 paying customers, and the free trial crashed twice on its very first day. That same year, I upgraded the binder. The manila folder had officially overflowed. I bought proper dividers, 1 tab for every year. Red pen labels on every single item. I wasn't building a legal case. I want to be crystal clear about that. I wasn't plotting revenge. I was simply doing what I'd always done, keeping records, because that's what a financial analyst does with her life. You don't throw away documentation. Ever. But somewhere in that year, I started numbering each item and dating every single one, because I knew something instinctively: numbers don't lie. And neither would I. Liam and Sophie arrived on a Wednesday morning in November. 6 pounds each. Matching heads of dark curls. Sophie screamed nonstop for 4 straight hours. Liam slept peacefully through the entire thing. Marcus cried. I had genuinely never once seen him cry before that moment. He stood by the hospital window holding Sophie in one arm and Liam in the other and said, quietly, they're going to know they're loved every single day of their lives. Cora flew in the very next morning and stayed 2 full weeks. She cooked. She cleaned. She rocked Liam at 3 in the morning while I nursed Sophie in the next room. She brought a hand-crocheted blanket, yellow and white, soft enough to make you tear up just holding it, along with a small silver bracelet for each twin, engraved with their birth dates. That right there is what a grandmother is supposed to look like. I had mailed my mother the ultrasound photos 5 months earlier. Returned. I sent birth announcements, one for each baby. Returned. I mailed photographs, Liam asleep on Marcus's chest, Sophie gripping my finger in her tiny fist. Returned, every time. 3 more entries went into the binder. Items 13, 14, 15. Around that same time, Paige texted a mutual friend of ours from high school. That friend, without adding a single word of her own, forwarded the screenshot straight to me. Paige had written, "Her children don't have real grandparents." That is what she chose. I sat in the twins' nursery holding that phone for 11 full minutes. Sophie was asleep in her crib. Liam was cradled in my arms. Down the hall, I could hear Cora humming softly in the kitchen as she washed bottles. My children absolutely had a grandmother. Her name was Cora Ellison, and she flew in from Cleveland every 6 weeks without fail and never once missed a single birthday. I printed that text. Filed it. Item 16. Red pen. Dated. By year 4, the binder held 19 entries. And I need you to understand something important. I never kept that binder out of spite. I didn't sit up at night flipping through it, fantasizing about some big confrontation. Honestly, most weeks I completely forgot it even existed, buried in that bottom drawer under old tax folders and insurance paperwork, collecting dust like everything else back there. But the moment something new arrived, a returned card, a forwarded screenshot, a voicemail transcript I saved because deleting it felt like erasing the last piece of evidence I had, I filed it. Same process every time. Print. Label. Date. Red pen. New tab. Marcus asked me once why I bothered keeping all of it. I told him the truth, because someday, when the kids are old enough to ask why they don't have grandparents on my side, I want them to have facts. Not my version. Not her version. The receipts. He just nodded. He understood receipts better than most people. He was an engineer. Engineers keep build logs for a reason. By then, Compliance Core had grown to 11 employees, and we'd moved out of that cold garage into an actual office in the Pearl District. Marcus was clocking 60-hour weeks. I split my time 40 hours at my finance job, another 20 on Compliance Core's books after hours. We hired a part-time nanny. We ate dinner as a family every single night at 6:30, no exceptions, non-negotiable. The silence from Ohio had become something like weather by then, always present, occasionally noticed, mostly just background noise to a life that was otherwise full. Year 5 and Compliance Core had grown to 15 employees, with a real conference room and a whiteboard that, for once, wasn't secondhand. The growth was slow and steady, the kind that doesn't make headlines but keeps the lights on and the payroll funded. That same year, we bought our first house, a craftsman bungalow in the Cedarwood neighborhood, 3 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, and a backyard with a plum tree the twins immediately claimed as their personal fort. I remember signing that mortgage and thinking, this is ours. Nobody handed us this. We built it with our own 2 hands. Liam and Sophie started kindergarten together, riding the same bus, sitting in the same row, bickering constantly over who got the window seat. Beautifully, painfully normal. One Tuesday night that October, I made the mistake of opening Facebook. My mother had posted a photo from what looked like a Thanksgiving preview dinner, a brand new dining set, Paige and her husband seated at it, and a baby I'd never even met sitting in a high chair. My own nephew. Caption, my whole world. 3 people in that photo. A baby. A table. An entire family that didn't include me, my husband, or my children anywhere in the frame. I closed the app. Went to bed. Didn't cry. I'd stopped crying over Diane Archer sometime around year 3. Some wounds just don't heal, they go numb instead. Paige got married in year 6. I found out through Instagram. Gorgeous photos, the same Baptist church where I'd been baptized at 12 years old, 200 guests, Paige in a cathedral-length veil, my mother in lavender, my father in a suit I'd never once seen before. A live band. A 5-tier cake. A sparkler send-off straight out of a movie. Nobody invited me. Nobody even told me it was happening. I only found out 4 days after the fact, when an old high school friend posted a group photo captioned, "Best wedding of the year." I zoomed in. There were my parents in the second row, arms wrapped around each other, both of them beaming. I stared at that photo for a long time. Not out of jealousy, I'd had my wedding. 12 guests, Thai food, a $160 dress, and the single best man I've ever known standing beside me. I stared because they looked genuinely happy. And they looked that happy without me in the picture at all. I did something afterward I probably shouldn't have. I ordered a set of handmade ivory linen napkins from a little shop in Portland, monogrammed with Paige's new married initials. I wrote a short card, "Congratulations on your wedding. I wish you and your husband every happiness. Love, Iris." The package came back 3 weeks later, completely unopened. The tape hadn't even been broken. Item 17. Wedding gift returned. Red pen. Dated. I closed the binder, slid it back into the drawer, and sat listening to Sophie singing in the bathtub down the hall and Liam arguing with Marcus over whether or not dinosaurs could swim. That, right there in the next room, was my actual family. And they were more than enough. Year 7 changed everything. Compliance Corps closed a Series B $12 million from a venture capital firm out in San Francisco. I remember exactly where I was when the call came in. Marcus was in the kitchen flipping pancakes for the twins. His phone rang. He listened, nodded once, hung up, and turned to me and said, "They said yes." I did the math before those pancakes even finished cooking. $12 million in funding meant a post-money valuation of $68 million. Marcus and I still held 22% between us. We weren't rich yet, not even close, but the numbers were suddenly headed somewhere I'd only ever modeled inside a spreadsheet for fun. I left my analyst job that same month and joined Compliance Corps full-time as Chief Financial Officer. For the first time, my name sat right next to his on the official company paperwork. Full partners, on paper and in practice. We upgraded again. A 4-bedroom colonial in Lake Oswego, 15 minutes south of the city. Good schools, quiet streets, a kitchen island where the twins did their homework while I reviewed quarterly reports on the other end of the counter. The series begot a little press coverage, a short piece in TechCrunch, a mention in a couple of fintech newsletters. Nothing huge. The kind of coverage industry insiders notice and everyone else scrolls right past. Except somebody in Millfield, Ohio didn't scroll past it. 2 weeks after that TechCrunch article ran, an old high school friend texted me out of nowhere. "Hey, kind of random, but your mom asked me about your husband's company at church on Sunday. She wanted to know what a Series B even means. Just thought you should know." I read that message 3 separate times. My mother hadn't spoken my name out loud in 7 years. She had no idea what a Series B was. But she suddenly wanted to know. The math was shifting and Diane Archer, of all people, was paying very, very close attention. That same year, I sent what I fully believed would be my final birthday card to her. 7 years running, 7 cards returned, each one carefully filed and labeled. But this time, I slipped something extra inside, a photo of Liam and Sophie at their school's fall festival, both of them in matching flannel, faces painted, Liam missing both front teeth, Sophie grinning so wide her eyes had practically disappeared. On the back, I wrote, "They ask about you sometimes. I tell them you live far away." I sealed it, mailed it, braced for the usual red stamp. It came back in 9 days instead of the usual 11. But something was different this time. The envelope flap had clearly been cut open and resealed with a thin strip of clear tape. I held it up to the light. The card was still inside. The photo was still inside. But somebody had taken both of them out, looked at them, and then very carefully, very deliberately, put everything back before sending it away again. I sat at the kitchen table turning that envelope over in my hands for a long time. Someone in that house, my father, I was almost certain, had opened it. Had looked into his grandchildren's faces. Had held that photo in his hands. And then somebody else, my mother, I was equally certain, had made him seal it back up and send it away. He wanted to keep it. She wouldn't let him. Item 23. Birthday card. Opened and resealed. Photo viewed. Still returned. My hand was steadier than I expected while I wrote that label, because deep down I'd suspected for years that my father wasn't the true architect of our silence. He was just the enforcer. My mother was the architect. And her blueprint was simple. If she couldn't control who I loved, she would erase me from the family entirely. Year 8 and Compliance Corps had ballooned to 80 employees, offices in both Portland and Austin, and partnerships with 2 of the largest accounting firms in the entire Pacific Northwest. Marcus landed the cover of a regional business magazine, small print run, mostly local, but there he was, glossy cover, headline reading, "The Quiet Disruptor." I started noticing something strange happening on my LinkedIn that month. Someone from Millfield, Ohio had viewed my profile 3 separate times in a single week. No visible name, Clearly a private browser or some kind of burner account, but the location tag sat right there in plain sight, Millfield, Ohio. Then Forbes released its annual Companies to Watch list. Compliance Core landed at number 47 out of 50. A tiny mention, 2 sentences total, but it was Forbes. I didn't think much more about those LinkedIn views until a few weeks later, when Marcus guested on a fintech podcast. 45 minutes, mostly technical, compliance automation, API integrations, federal reporting standards. Not exactly viral material. But 3 days after it aired, my old friend Tess texted me again. Your mom told Linda at church that she always knew Marcus was smart. Direct quote. Linda said Diane sounded proud. First time she's mentioned your name in years. Always knew Marcus was smart. 7 years of dead silence, and now, suddenly, she'd always known. I didn't add that one to the binder. It wasn't a real document, just hearsay. But I wrote it on a sticky note and pressed it to the inside cover because I wanted to remember the exact moment my mother started quietly rewriting 9 years of history. She wasn't proud of Marcus. She'd never been sorry. She was recalculating. The numbers kept climbing, and my mother, it turned out, was an accountant of a very different kind. The group chat landed in my lap on an ordinary Monday. Tess called me at 7 that evening, and I could tell right away something had rattled her. Iris, Paige accidentally added me to a family group chat. I think she meant to add someone with a similar number. I was in it for 3 days before anyone noticed and kicked me out. I took screenshots. She sent me 7 of them. 3 uninterrupted days of raw, unfiltered Archer family conversation. I sat in the parking lot outside Liam's soccer practice and read every single word. Paige, his company was valued at $68 million last round. I've been tracking the funding filings. If they IPO, we're looking at $300 million minimum. Diane, how do we approach this? She won't listen to me. I need to go in person with a real plan. Kenneth, this doesn't feel right. Diane, Kenneth, she has more money than this entire town. She can afford to help her family. Paige, make a list. Be specific about what we need. She's a numbers person. She'll respond to numbers. Diane, how much should we ask for? Paige, start with the mortgage, then medical, then retirement. College for my son. Monthly support. Layer it. Make it look like family investment, not a request. My father never responded again after that. I sat there in my parked car, engine off, the dashboard clock reading 7:22, and watched Liam sprint across the field chasing a soccer ball nearly as big as his own head. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, but from a strange, sudden clarity. 9 years of silence. 9 years of returned birthday cards and ignored grandchildren and a cream-colored letter that told me not to walk back through that door. And now that the numbers had finally changed, they were building a formal plan to approach me. I drove home and printed every screenshot. Filed them. Item 26. Family group chat. Financial reconnaissance confirmed. If any part of this is hitting a little too close to home, if someone has ever cut you off and then comes sprinting back the moment your circumstances changed, drop it in the comments below. Because I think a lot more of us are carrying this than we ever admit out loud. And while you're here, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. That night, once the kids were asleep, I showed Marcus the screenshots. He read through them once, slowly, the exact same way he reads through code line by line, hunting for bugs. When he finished, he set the phone down on the counter and stared at the wall for a long moment. What do you want to do? He finally asked. Nothing yet, I told him. But I want to be ready. He just nodded. That was Marcus, through and through. He never told me what to feel. He never pushed me toward confrontation or toward silence. He simply asked what I wanted, and then he stood beside me while I worked it out for myself. The next morning I called a family attorney, not to sue anyone, not to file a single document. I just wanted to understand exactly where I stood. Could my mother make any legal claim on our assets? On the children? Grace, our attorney, mid-50s, and completely no-nonsense, walked me through it in 20 flat minutes. No, Diane had zero legal standing. Our trusts were airtight. Oregon didn't grant grandparent visitation rights without an existing relationship already in place, and 9 years of clearly documented estrangement made any future claim laughable at best. I thanked her, hung up, and went back to work. But that same week, I also sat down at my kitchen table after midnight and drafted a letter I never sent. In it, I listed every single item in that binder, every date, every returned card, every ignored phone call, every screenshot. 26 entries, documented, dated, and ready. The IPO conversations kicked off that January. Investment bankers flew out to Portland for 3 separate rounds of meetings, all held in our conference room, the one with the whiteboard that, yes, was technically still secondhand, though nobody in that room needed to know that detail. They combed through our financials, our growth curves, our customer retention numbers. They threw around phrases like roadshow and pricing range and lockup period. Marcus handled the product pitch. I handled every number on every slide, every projection, every risk disclosure. My name sat right there on the paperwork. CFO, co-founder, the person who signed off personally on every SEC filing before it ever left the building. The whole process dragged out over 7 months. Marcus barely slept. I barely ate. Even the twins started noticing something had shifted. Liam asked why Dad kept talking to his laptop through dinner, and Sophie drew a picture of me hunched over my desk with a little speech bubble that just said, "One more email." That August, our attorney finalized irrevocable trust structures for both Liam and Sophie. Fully funded, fully protected. Nobody, not my mother, not my father, not Paige, not any future version of any Archer who showed up waving a list, could touch a single dollar of it. I signed those trust documents on a Tuesday afternoon in a corner office, looking out over the Willamette River. Our attorney asked if I had any final questions. I had exactly one. If a family member tries to claim access to these funds, what happens? Nothing, she said simply. That's the entire point. I drove home, made dinner, helped Sophie with her long division, and tucked the trust documents into our fireproof safe under the bed. That's when I noticed something strange. For the first time in months, nobody from Millfield had viewed my LinkedIn. No text from Tess about church gossip. Total digital silence. It felt dangerous, that kind of quiet. 2 months before the IPO, Paige texted me for the very first time in 9 years. The message landed at 2:17 in the afternoon on an ordinary Thursday. 6 words, "Hey, just thinking about you. How are the kids?" 6 words, after 9 full years, as if she'd been checking in regularly this whole time instead of vanishing without a trace. I didn't respond for a full week, curious whether she'd follow up. She did a second text, saying she'd be in Portland for work the following month and would love to see me. Marcus told me it was entirely my call. I agreed to meet her, but on my terms, a cafe in the Pearl District, public, neutral, and time-limited. Paige showed up 15 minutes late in a sharp blazer and ankle boots, looking like she'd rehearsed exactly how to appear casual. She hugged me a beat too long. Told me I looked amazing 3 separate times inside the first 10 minutes. Then the real questions started rolling in. How big was our house? Did the kids attend private school? What neighborhood did we live in? Was Marcus still hands-on running the company, or had he stepped back into something more comfortable? How many employees now? Had we raised more money recently? 32 questions. I counted every single one of them. Not a single one was, "I'm sorry." Halfway through our lattes, I caught something in the reflection off the cafe window. Paige had angled her phone toward the parking lot, snapping a photo of my car, a white Tesla Model Y Marcus had gifted me for my birthday. She wasn't reconnecting with her sister. She was scouting, cataloging, building a report to bring home. I let her finish her latte. I answered every question vaguely and politely, the exact tone you'd use with a bank teller making idle small talk. When we hugged goodbye, she held on a beat too long again. The moment I got home, I opened the binder. Item 28. Paige's reconnaissance visit. Dated, red pen, notes. 32 questions documented, vehicle photographed, 0 apology offered, 0 mention of the 9 years of silence between us. Then I called Grace a second time. "They're coming," I told her. "My mother, probably within weeks of the IPO. She's going to bring demands." Grace asked what kind of demands. I explained the group chat, the screenshots, Paige's instructions to layer it and dress it up as family investment rather than a request. Grace went quiet for a moment before she finally said, "You have documentation." "How thorough?" 28 items. Dated. Sourced. 9 years. Another long pause. "Iris, you don't actually need me for this part. You needed me for the legal structure, the trusts, the estate separation. That's already handled. What you're describing now isn't a legal fight. It's a personal one. And for that, all you need to decide is what you're willing to say to her face." She was right. This was never going to be settled by lawyers. This was about one woman who showed up at my door because the numbers had finally changed, and whether or not I was going to let her rewrite 9 years of deliberate silence into some quiet misunderstanding. That night, I pulled out the letter I'd drafted months earlier, the one listing every single item in the binder. I read it once through. Then I folded it up and slid it back into the drawer. I didn't need a letter. I had the binder itself. 28 items. 9 years. Every returned card, every ignored voicemail, Every screenshot, every single piece of proof that my family erased me. Not because I'd done anything wrong. Because I loved a man they refused to accept. The binder would speak for itself. I just had to let it. Compliance Corps went public on a Wednesday morning in October. Marcus and I stood together on the floor of the NASDAQ in New York, him in a charcoal suit, me in a navy blazer, and watched our stock open at $18 a share. By noon it hit 20. By closing bell, 22. Market cap, $440 million. Marcus and I still held 10% between us. On paper, that put our net worth somewhere around $44 million. $44 million. I genuinely did not know what to do with a number like that. It didn't feel real. It felt like a typo in a spreadsheet cell. Too many zeros. Check the formula again. Except I had checked the formula. Repeatedly. That was, quite literally, my entire job. TechCrunch ran a feature. Forbes reached out for comment. Bloomberg put Marcus's photo in a sidebar. A local Portland news station gave us a 3-minute segment. Local couples fintech startup hits NASDAQ. They ran our company photo, 2 founders standing side by side, completely equal. Marcus and I celebrated with room service sushi in our hotel room overlooking Times Square. Back home in Portland, Cora had flown in to stay with the twins for the week. Marcus passed out on the couch by 9:15, still in his suit jacket. I stayed up. Not because of the IPO, because of what I already knew was coming next. I checked my phone. 5 missed calls. Area code 740. Millfield, Ohio. 3 from a number I didn't recognize. 1 from my father. 1 from my mother. I didn't call any of them back. I set the phone face down on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling for a long time. 9 years of nothing, and $44 million later, suddenly Iris Archer was worth knowing again. I fell asleep with my hand resting on top of that phone, half expecting it to ring again. It would. My father's voicemail landed the next morning while I was brushing my teeth. His voice sounded thinner than I remembered older. Same slow, careful cadence, a man who measured his words the way he once measured lumber. But underneath it all, something had cracked. Baby girl. I saw you on the news, you and Marcus, on the stock exchange floor. I didn't know what to say, so I'm calling. I'm proud of you. I've always been. A long pause. Breathing. Your mother wants to talk. She has things she wants to discuss. Please call her back when you can. I love you, Iris. I played that message 3 separate times. Baby girl. He hadn't called me that since I was 14 years old. And I'm proud of you for words I had genuinely waited a full decade to hear. But then I rewound it and listened again, this time paying attention to the shape of it, not just the sound. He called after the IPO. Not after the wedding. Not after the twins were born. Not after any one of the 7 birthday cards, the ultrasound photos, the birth announcements. After the IPO. He was proud of me on paper. He had always, in some quiet way, been proud of me on paper. What he had never once been was brave enough to pick up that phone when there weren't millions of dollars attached to the call. He is not one of us, Iris. He never will be. That was my mother's voice, but it was my father who enforced her silence every single day for 9 straight years. He could have called on any day in any of those years. He chose this one. The one with 44 million reasons attached to it. I saved that voicemail. I didn't add it to the binder, it felt too sad to belong in there. Instead, I sat down on the hotel bathroom floor and let myself feel every bit of it, all of it, for about 4 full minutes. Then I stood up and packed my suitcase. We had a flight to catch. My mother's text arrived 2 days after we landed back in Portland. Long, carefully composed. No typos, no autocorrect slips, no casual shorthand. This was a draft, something she'd written, revised, probably read out loud to her own reflection before hitting send. Iris, I know we've lost time. I think about you and the children every day. Life is short, and I've learned that some things matter more than the differences that divide us. I would like to talk about the future, about the children, about what it means to be a family. There are things that families should share. I believe we can find a way forward if you are willing. I read it twice and counted the words. 63, carefully chosen. And not one single one of them was sorry. Not one was I was wrong. Not one acknowledged that she disowned me for marrying a man whose skin was a different shade than hers. Not one mentioned the returned birthday cards, the ignored grandchildren, the 9 years of weaponized silence she'd inflicted on purpose. The differences that divide us. As if our estrangement had been some kind of philosophical disagreement, and not a woman looking her own daughter in the eye and telling her, he is not one of us, before returning 7 straight years of birthday cards unopened. I didn't reply. I screenshotted the message, printed it out, and opened the binder. Item 29. First text from Diane in 9 years. 63 words. 0 apology. Red pen. Dated. I closed the binder, slid it back into the drawer, sat down at my desk, and looked at the framed photo beside my monitor. Marcus and me, the twins, all 4 of us squinting into the sun on Cannon Beach. Liam perched on Marcus's shoulders. Sophie holding tight to my hand. That photo was my entire answer, sitting right there in a frame. Tess called on a Friday afternoon. Paige is telling everyone she visited you in Portland, she said. She's saying you live in a mansion, her exact word. She's telling people Marcus struck gold, that you drive a Tesla, that the kids go to some fancy private school. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Half of that's flat out wrong. It's not a mansion, and the kids go to public school. Iris, that's not the point. Your mom's planning a trip. Paige told Linda at the salon that Diane's heading to Portland next week. She's already packing a suitcase. I closed my eyes. I know. How? Because Paige counted every room in that cafe and photographed my car. Silence on the other end. Then, so, what are you going to do? I'm going to open the door. I'm going to let her talk, I said. And then I'm going to show her exactly what's been sitting in the bottom drawer of my desk for the past 9 years. I hung up and stood alone in my kitchen, the same kitchen with the island where Sophie did homework, where Liam built towers out of Legos, where Marcus flipped pancakes every single Sunday morning. Cora's photo was pinned to the fridge, right next to the twins' latest field trip artwork. Grammy Cora, the only grandmother my children had ever known. My mother was coming. I'd known it was coming since the group chat leaked, since the Series B, since the LinkedIn views and the church gossip and Paige's 32 questions over lattes. The numbers had changed, and Diane Archer was on her way to collect. But I was no longer the 18-year-old girl who left Millfield with a scholarship and a card that promised, come home soon. I was a CFO, a mother, a woman with a binder. And I was ready. There's an irony to all of this that never stopped nagging at me. Back in Millfield, news traveled through the Baptist church exactly the way water moves through limestone, slow, but eventually it reaches everywhere, and there's no stopping it once it starts. When I married Marcus, that whisper network did its damage in under 48 hours flat. Diane Archer's daughter married someone who isn't like us. The women on the prayer chain clucked their tongues. The men at the diner shook their heads over their coffee. My mother had leaned on that exact social pressure like it was a weapon, and, honestly, part of why she disowned me was because she couldn't bear to sit through the whispering. Now those same whispers had flipped direction entirely. Tess told me. Linda at the salon told Tess. The church organist told Linda. Iris Archer's husband is on NASDAQ. Iris Archer is a CFO. Iris Archer is sitting on $44 million. And Diane Archer, the very woman who ran the Easter brunch and coordinated the prayer chain like clockwork, had cut off her own firstborn daughter 9 years earlier for daring to marry him. People weren't just whispering behind her back anymore. They were asking her straight to her face. You must be so proud. When did you last go visit the grandkids? Are you flying out to Portland for the holidays this year? And my mother had to smile through every single one of those questions, because admitting the plain truth, that she'd severed ties with her own daughter over the man she loved, would shatter the carefully curated image she'd spent a full decade polishing. The very same town that once let her cut me off without a second thought was now demanding she explain herself. She couldn't claim we were estranged without admitting she was the one who drew that line in the first place. And she couldn't pretend everything was perfectly fine without someone eventually asking, then where exactly was Iris at Christmas dinner? The pressure was reversing. Diane Archer, the woman who'd wielded social pressure like a surgeon's scalpel her entire life, was finally the one being cut by it. She arrived on a Tuesday at exactly 10:14 in the morning. I know the precise time because I was standing at my kitchen window drying a coffee mug when I watched the taxi pull up to the curb. She stepped out slowly, beige cardigan, black slacks, the same pearl stud earrings she'd worn to church every single Sunday since I was a little girl. A small carry-on suitcase, worn thin at the corners. She stood on the sidewalk for a full 30 seconds before finally starting up the path, and I watched her take in the whole house, the craftsman trim, the porch swing, the flower beds Marcus had planted that spring, the way an appraiser evaluates a property, not the way a mother looks at her daughter's home. The doorbell rang. I opened it. We stood 3 feet apart. She looked older than I remembered, more gray woven through her hair, deeper lines carved around her mouth that hadn't been there 9 years earlier. Her eyes, the exact same shade of green as mine, were already welling up. Iris. Mom. A silence stretched out for 4 full seconds. "I came to talk about the children's future," she finally said. "Not, I came because I missed you. Not, I came because I was wrong. Not even, I came because I love you." She came to talk about the future of children she had never once met, children whose photographs she had opened, looked at, and mailed straight back to me in sealed, taped envelopes. Children Paige had once claimed didn't even have real grandparents. I looked down at the suitcase, at the folded piece of paper clutched in her right hand. "Come in," I said. I didn't lead her to the living room. I walked her straight into the kitchen with good morning light, with the fridge covered in Cora's photo and the twins' artwork and a world map where Sophie had marked every country she someday wanted to visit. That kitchen was where the truth lived in our house. And truth was exactly what we were about to have. She sat down at the table. I poured 2 glasses of water. No coffee. Coffee was for people who intended to stay. Her eyes drifted around the room and landed on the fridge on Cora's photo, Grammy Cora holding both twins on her lap at the beach, all 3 of them laughing at something out of frame. My mother stared at that photo for a solid 5 seconds. Something crossed her face, guilt, maybe, or jealousy. I honestly couldn't tell which. Then she unfolded her paper. Blue ink. 5 bullet points, each one neat, deliberate, clearly the product of hours of quiet calculation. She read them aloud. "Retirement fund for your father and me. $500,000. I said nothing. "College fund for Paige's son, Thomas. $200,000. Nothing. "Medical expenses. Your father's knee surgery. $45,000. Nothing. "Mortgage payoff on the family home. $180,000. Nothing. "Monthly support. $3,000 a month. She folded the paper back up, set it down on the table between us, and looked at me. "This is what families do, Iris. Your father worked his entire life. He sacrificed for both of you. It's time to give back." I stared down at that list. $925,000, itemized and calculated like a professional invoice. Not once, during that entire reading, did she pair my name with the word sorry. Not once did she acknowledge she was sitting in a house she had never once visited, asking for money on behalf of grandchildren she had never once held. Her children don't have real grandparents. That is what she chose. Paige's words echoed straight through my head. I picked up her list, read every line one final time, folded it, and set it back down. Then I stood, walked to my office, and opened that bottom desk drawer exactly where I'd left it, beneath the tax folders, behind the old insurance paperwork. I pulled out the binder. Navy blue. 3 rings. Heavy, in the specific way that only 9 years of documentation can make something heavy. I carried it back into the kitchen and set it down on the table, right beside her folded list of demands. 2 documents, side by side. Hers 1 page, 5 bullet points, $925,000. Mine 29 items, 9 years, 0 apologies ever received. My mother looked at the binder. "What is that?" "You brought a list, Mom." I sat back down and placed both hands flat on the table. "I brought one too." She stared at the binder, at the red pen labels visible right through the clear plastic cover, at the sheer thickness of it, nearly 3 inches of tabs and printed screenshots and returned birthday cards, still sealed in their original envelopes. "I don't understand," she said. "You will." I opened it to the very first tab. Year 1. I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't cry. I didn't perform for her. I read it exactly the way I present quarterly numbers to a board, factual, organized, 1 item at a time. 9 years of receipts, dated, documented, every returned card, every ignored voicemail, every screenshot, every single piece of proof that Diane Archer had systematically erased her own firstborn daughter from this family. Not because I'd done anything wrong, because I'd loved a man she refused to accept. That binder wasn't revenge. It was never a weapon. It was a record. And records don't negotiate. They don't argue. They don't forgive, and they don't condemn. They simply tell the truth. And I had 9 years of truth ready to hand over. Tab 1, Year 1. I pulled out the first item, a birthday card in a plain white envelope, a red stamp slashed across the front, still sealed shut. I laid it on the table. Item 1. Birthday card. Mailed September 12, 2017. Returned September 23. Her eyes went wide. I pulled the second item. Another envelope, same red stamp. Item 2. Wedding photo. Mailed June 14, 2017. Returned June 25. A third. Item 3. Christmas card. Mailed December 8, 2017. Returned December 21st. I laid them out, one after another, slowly, exactly the way you'd lay out evidence during an audit. No commentary. No emotion. Just documents, arranged in chronological order. Her mouth opened, then shut again. She stared at the growing row of white envelopes stretched across the table, each one a door I had tried to open, and each one she had slammed shut in my face. These are the birthday cards I sent you. Every year, for 9 years. Every single one came back. Iris. I'm not finished. I flipped to tab 2. Year 2. 3 more items, a printed voicemail transcript, my own words captured word for word from a transcription app, stapled to a note bearing the date and time. An unanswered call log. A printed screenshot of my mother's My Whole World Facebook post. No Iris. No Marcus. No grandchildren anywhere in the frame. Item 4. Voicemail left for you. January 7, 2018. 47 seconds long. No call back received. I set the transcript down on the table. Item 5. Text from Dad. February 12, 2018. 4 words. I read them out loud. Your mother needs time. I looked up at her. It's been 9 years, Mom. How much more time exactly did you need? The tears came, right on cue. I'd expected them. My mother pressed both hands over her face and made the exact sound I'd heard 1,000 times growing up, the controlled, theatrical crying she reserved for moments she needed sympathy without ever having to actually surrender any dignity. The same performance she gave when my father forgot their anniversary. The same one she gave when her casserole lost the church potluck. I was hurt, Iris. You chose him over us. You left. I didn't leave. You told me not to come back. That's not, I was upset. People say things when they're upset. I flipped to tab 4, year 4, and pulled out the next printout. Item 16. Text from Paige to a mutual friend, forwarded to me. March 9, 2021. I read it aloud, slow and steady. Her children don't have real grandparents. That is what she chose. My mother flinched. Paige didn't mean. This is her exact text. Word for word. I flipped to the final tab, the group chat screenshots, 7 full pages. Item 26. Family group chat screenshots, provided by a mutual friend who was accidentally added. October 4th. I read Paige's message aloud. Make a list. Be specific about what we need. She's a numbers person. She'll respond to numbers. Then my mother's own reply, she has more money than this entire town. She can afford to help her family. Her expression changed completely. The theatrical tears dried up almost instantly, replaced by something harder, something I recognized immediately. The exact same look she used to wear whenever Paige broke a piece of the good china and blamed it on the dog. Anger. Not guilt at all. Anger. You had absolutely no right to read that. I looked her dead in the eye, my voice perfectly level. You had absolutely no right to return my children's photographs. The kitchen went completely silent. I reached for one particular item. Tab 5, year 7. The envelope looked slightly different from the rest, same white paper, same red stamp, but the flap was creased in a way the others weren't, cut open and resealed with a thin strip of clear tape. I held it up. Item 23. Birthday card, year 7. Inside was a photo of Liam and Sophie at their school's fall festival. On the back I wrote, they ask about you sometimes. I tell them you live far away. I set it down on the table between us. This envelope was opened. Someone looked at their photo, looked into their faces, then sealed it back up and mailed it right back to me. My mother's jaw tightened. Who opened it, Mom? Nothing. Dad opened it. Didn't he? He wanted to keep it. And you made him send it back. Her hands went flat against the table. Her eyes stayed locked on that envelope, on the strip of tape. And then, so quietly I almost missed it entirely, she whispered, I was afraid. I waited. If I let him keep it, if I let any of it in, I would have had to admit I was wrong. That I lost 9 years for nothing. That I pushed away my own grandchildren because I was too proud to. She stopped herself. Swallowed hard. For one single second, maybe 2, I saw something real cross her face. Not a performance. Not manipulation. Actual raw fear. The kind that lives buried underneath anger for so long it eventually forgets how to surface any other way. Then it vanished. Her chin lifted. Her spine straightened. But you left us, Iris. You made your choice. That flicker of honesty evaporated like steam off a coffee cup, gone before I could even hold onto it. I set her list of demands down on the left side of the table. Your list. $925,000. 5 bullet points. No apology. I tapped the binder. My list. 29 items. 9 years of silence. 9 years of returned birthday cards and ignored grandchildren, and a daughter you erased because she married the wrong man. Her nostrils flared. I did not erase you. You told the church I abandoned this family. You told Paige to tell our old friends that my children didn't have real grandparents. You tracked my husband's company for months, and then you showed up on my doorstep with an itemized invoice. I closed the binder. The metal rings clicked shut. You didn't come here because you missed me, Mom. You came here because the numbers changed. She stood so fast the chair scraped hard against the tile. After everything we did for you growing up, the food, the clothes, the school supplies, this is how you repay us? You raised me. That's not a debt. That's what parents do. We gave you everything. You gave me a card that said, "Come home soon." And then you told me never to come back. She had no answer for that. I could see her scanning through her entire mental Rolodex of guilt trips and emotional leverage, and finding absolutely nothing left that fit. You said he was not one of us, I said quietly. But for 9 years, his mother was the only grandmother my children have ever had. The words settled in the kitchen like smoke. I watched them land. She had nothing left to say. The garage door rumbled open. Marcus stepped through the laundry room doorway, keys in one hand, laptop bag slung over his shoulder. He saw my mother sitting there. He saw the binder open on the table. He saw me. He didn't say a single word. He set his bag down on the counter, crossed the kitchen, sat down beside me, and rested his hand gently on my shoulder. That was it. No confrontation. No dramatic entrance. Just a man sitting next to his wife because she needed him there. My mother looked at Marcus, the same man she'd refused to accept 9 years earlier. Flannel shirt, running shoes, a watch that probably cost less than her pearl earrings. Nothing flashy about him at all. Nothing that screamed $44 million. Just a man. A good man. A father. A husband. Sitting right there beside me, saying everything he needed to say without opening his mouth once. My mother stared at his hand resting on my shoulder, at the total absence of tension in that room, at the fact that neither of us needed a single word to feel completely secure. And I think, in that moment, she finally understood. I never needed the Archer family. I'd already gone and built my own. I spoke quietly, the same tone I used delivering a final number on a balance sheet, factual, complete, no revisions pending. Mom, I will not give you money. She opened her mouth. I kept going. Not because I can't afford it. Because the moment I hand you a check, you'll convince yourself you were right to stay away this entire time, right up until it became profitable to come back. You'll tell yourself, and you'll tell Paige, that this was all just a misunderstanding. That the 9 years were nothing more than a rough patch. I picked her list back up and held it out toward her. They weren't a rough patch. They were a choice. Your choice. Every returned card. Every ignored voicemail. Every photograph of your own grandchildren that you looked at and then mailed straight back. She didn't take the list. It hung there in the air between us. If you actually want to know your grandchildren, really know them, not as a line item in some financial plan, that starts with an apology. Not to me. To them. And it doesn't start today. It starts the day you're finally ready to mean it. My mother took the list from my hand, picked up her suitcase, and walked to the front door. She stopped there for a moment, turned around, opened her mouth, closed it again, and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her. Not a slam. Just a click, the quiet sound of someone leaving who understood, somewhere deep down, that she'd lost something no amount of money could ever buy back. If someone has ever shown up in your life only after your circumstances changed for the better, I genuinely want to hear that story. Drop it in the comments below. And if this reminded you even for 1 second that your worth was never a dollar amount, please share it with someone out there who needs to hear it today. 2 weeks passed. Marcus and I didn't talk about my mother much, not because we were avoiding the subject, but simply because there wasn't much left to say. She'd arrived with a list. I'd shown her a binder. She left without ever once saying she was sorry. The math, as far as I was concerned, was settled. The twins never knew she'd even visited. They were at school for both her arrival and her departure. I preferred it exactly that way. They'll learn about Diane Archer when they're old enough to understand that some people only see you clearly once the light hits your bank account just right. My father called, not on a weekend, but on an ordinary Tuesday morning at 9:14, while I was in the middle of reviewing a vendor contract at work. Iris, your mother told me what happened. A pause. I should have opened that door for you 9 years ago. I should have picked up the phone. I should have driven out to Portland the day the twins were born. I should have done a lot of things. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. Not because of the money. I don't want your money. I want to know my grandchildren. And I want to know if you'll let me try. I stayed quiet for 17 full seconds. I counted every one. I believe you, Dad, I finally said. But believing you and trusting you again are two very different things. We start slow. Phone calls every 2 weeks. No visits yet. No money involved. Just talking. He agreed instantly. That's more than I deserve. It's exactly what you deserve, I told him. Not more. Not less. We hung up. I went right back to my contract. Paige texted once. A single line, you could have just helped. I never replied. Some messages are their own answer. My mother never called. Never texted. Never wrote another word. The silence came back around, except this time, it belonged entirely to her. I'd already said everything I ever needed to say. The next move, whatever it turned out to be, was hers to make. That binder is still sitting in the bottom drawer of my desk. 29 items. 9 years. I haven't had to add a 30th entry. I hope, honestly, I never will. Here's what 9 years of silence taught me. If you take nothing else away from this story, family isn't just the people who happen to share your last name. It isn't the people who suddenly reappear the moment your net worth changes. Family is the people who show up when your whole world is small, when your garage is freezing cold at midnight, when your babies need somebody to rock them at 3 in the morning. The people who fly in from Cleveland every 6 weeks without fail, who crochet blankets by hand, who teach your son how to properly make a grilled cheese sandwich. That's family. And it was never, not once, about the money. It was always about who actually showed up. That's my story. 9 years. 29 items. 1 navy blue binder. If any part of this reminded you that your worth was never measured in dollars, share it with somebody today who needs to hear exactly that. Drop a comment. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet. And I'll see you in the next one.